Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with more Neighbors from Hell and revenge stories. In today's title story, OP's neighbor impersonated his landlord and served him a fake eviction notice. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, Neighbors are threatening us and are messing around with cars in the neighborhood. Eastern CT, Connecticut, USA. My apartment manager has issues with 7 out of 8 apartments and the landlord only visits once a year. Things have been escalating recently and her 17-year-old son has threatened 2 of us in different apartments. Both times it came out of nowhere and over nothing. Full on dead eyes rage mode. Last night I got to experience it firsthand. I stepped outside to grab the mail and the manager popped her head out to talk. She accused me of starting crap and that her 17-year-old boy is very angry with me. She then called her son out of the house so he could talk to me. He was red-faced angry already and proceeded to tell me to go to your car or go inside, go the F away. And he then said he was going to beat the crap out of me, take me down and destroy my car. I said something like, "You're showing off in front of your mom, be quiet and don't threaten me." I then walked away to try to get my cat inside and away from him. His mother had to drag him away because he was still going off. I told them I was calling the police, but I never did. I am thinking about making a report today though. I also feel like I should confront the landlord about this. At least 5 to 6 of my neighbors would definitely back me up. We have all had issues. Also, just last week, this young man had a very similar freak out on another neighbor. He was screaming and threatening violence. Thanks in advance, I am still reeling from everything, so I will check back later and edit. Update, things are getting worse. I talked to my landlord and he didn't care very much. He did not offer to help. I then called the police non-emergency line and filled them in on the incident. They said to call back if it happens again and took my name and their name down. Today things got worse though. They appeared to be angrier. My land manager's older son, on probation, yelled at me across the yard, "Effing think," and some stuff before his mom shut him up. He did a burnout down the road today and has generally been notably angry still. This guy just went to court for RAPE and assault and is still on probation. What the hell do I do? I have never used the police for anything before. I don't want to make this worse. I couldn't care about idle threats, but everyone in this family has an assault record. I appreciate any advice, thank you. And a user in the comments suggested, forward all police reports and any other legal paperwork directly to the landlord. Send this by certified mail so that you have proof that the landlord received the paperwork. The manager has no incentive to let the landlord know that any of this is happening and may well twist the facts around if she does tell them. And another user in the comments said, sounds like it is time for some form of restraining or harassment order. You and your neighbors should go together to the clerk's office of your local courthouse or police station. And guys, if you were in this horrific situation with a bunch of absolutely lunatic neighbors, what would you do if you were in OP's shoes? If you got any good ideas, please let us know in the comments. And the next one is the second part of the first story. It is essentially, if you will, a mini saga. It is titled, A tenant in my building has impersonated my landlord to serve evictions. The landlord had no knowledge. I made a post a month ago about my neighbors threatening me and other tenants in an 8-unit building in Connecticut. And by the way guys, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think CT is Connecticut. Anyway, things have since escalated incredibly. The landlord of this building only visits once a year. I have not seen him for a long time. Myself and every other neighbor in this building have been harassed by a woman and her children that live here. They have threatened violence on many of us. One of her sons threatened to kill my cat. He said he had done it before and had shot and buried another tenant's dog. I didn't take him seriously. My cat is fine, more down below. My neighbor's sister works for a lawyer. That lawyer was used to serve my other neighbor a notice to quit with less than 30 days to leave the apartment for termination for lapse of time. That neighbor then contacted the landlord to confirm it, and the landlord had no knowledge of the eviction. The landlord had that same lawyer write up something stating that there would be no eviction, but the tenant decided to leave anyway because they didn't want the continued harassment from the neighbor. I have been provided a copy of this. A week ago I was served the same thing. A notice to quit in 25 days for termination for lapse of time. I contacted the landlord and he once again had no knowledge of it. I met with the landlord and explained the harassment, threats to myself and my cat. The landlord seemed concerned about the cat thing. Turns out when my neighbor said he killed a dog, it was true. There are witnesses to him grabbing the dog, bringing it into the woods and shooting it. The owners of the dog moved from the apartment soon after and never pressed charges. This was years ago, before he went to jail for assault and strangulation and RAPE. He got out of prison about 6 months ago. After talking face to face with my landlord, it is clear that he is scared of her and her sons. He isn't sure what to do and neither am I. I called the police non-emergency number a few weeks ago when one of her sons was in the driveway jumping around threatening to kill me. The police just said to call back if it happens again. I am currently in contact with the other tenants that were served and 3 tenants from the past that had to leave due to harassment. They want to help as well. Thank you for any advice you may be able to give. My main goal is to avoid an eviction as I cannot see myself moving fast enough. I have savings for another rental and I am looking, but it is really hard to find something in my price range. I am a GI build student. My income is not great right now. Update again. Hey guys, 3 months have passed since my last posts and obviously there have not been any evictions. As many of you have correctly pointed out, our neighbor falsely impersonated our landlord and he came clear about that after a bunch of my neighbors have bonded together to expose this scumbag. The neighbors then apologized after we all threatened to go to the police together. I have since moved away from this apartment since the neighborhood was a bit rough and there were too many crazy people. Thanks for the advice, Reddit. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta admit that ending is not too surprising for me, because in many of these stories, whether it is neighbors from hell or HOAs, a lot of these people act tough and try to intimidate others, but they would never imagine that actually someone bonds together with others and they collectively go to the police, or at least threaten to do it, which could result in real consequences for the bully. The next one is titled, This Means You. About a month ago, a well-intentioned but brain-dead guy wound up turning my dog's feet into hamburgers trying to save him when he didn't need saving. Through the magic of modern medicine, my dog was back on his feet with surprising rapidity. For a while he was stuck on carpets and grass while his feet finished healing, and after some more recovery time we got the green light from my vet to attempt walkies on pavement. The day we made our first attempt was not good weather-wise. It was rainy and humid and just... I figured we would make it to the end of my street and then turn back once his feet started to hurt, but he had other plans and got quite bent out of shape when we didn't follow his plan. Once his displeasure was expressed and we resumed our usual route, I kept a close eye because I knew he was going to start feeling it soon. He started slowing down and eventually just flopped over and made a whining sound. I suppressed the urge to "I told you so" and scooped him up. Now our usual walkies route is down our dead-end street, around the corner and then up the next street corner. One of the people who live on that street bought the lot behind his and demolished the forest that the lot had before. Now it is just a green patch with a bunch of boats and other random crap parked on it that connects the 2 streets. People can do whatever they want with their property, I don't particularly care. What comes next though was a real kick in the teeth because I interact with this guy and his grandchildren pretty regularly. Don't know his name or him at all really, we will smile and nod at each other walking past, but his grandkids think my dog is adorable and he likes kids, so whenever they get the chance they will slobber all over him and get slobbered on in return. I didn't really know the guy all that well, but I figured what is the harm and took the shortcut. The next day we went for walkies again, and as I am walking past this dude's lot I notice there is a bunch of big new signs posted that all say "No trespassing," with an addendum at the bottom that had a picture of me walking through the yard holding my dog, which read, "This means you." Very classy. We went on our merry way, and this time I did not let the tantrum work, and we went up and down the street. After a few more cautious days we were able to resume our normal route, and I saw the dude who owns the 2 lots doing something to his lifted truck. I said hi, apologized for walking on his lawn, and asked him very politely if he wouldn't mind taking my picture down from the signs. The guy said nope, you broke the law. I was later told the guy called the police about this and the cops told him to get a life in cop speak. I just gave him a shrug and we kept on walking, no idea if I did break any laws or if him posting signs with my picture is breaking any laws. It was just a little bit annoying and I thought I would take an opportunity to soothe his apparently super rustled jimmies. However, that did not work. Now, when myself and the pooch walk our normal route, this guy's property gets the 1-finger salute from 2 different sides when I walk past. If there is kids playing in his yard, I will abstain, mostly because I'm not that much of an a-hole, but if it is just him or nobody is around, you bet your ass I will match his pettiness with my own. Today I guess he had the grandkids over, but they were inside, and so I gave the cameras the finger as I walked past like I usually do, because I too can be petty. As we reached the end of his street and turned around to start back, I saw him standing in the road with his arms crossed out front of his house, a thundercloud on his brow. When we get within literal shouting distance, he starts the conversation with, "What the hell is your problem anyway? My grandkids just saw you flipping the house off and wanted to know what you were doing." It probably would have escalated there if his grandkids didn't avalanche out of his house shouting my dog's name. The kid's mom, his daughter, came out of the house as well as trying to corral the kids, saying stuff about dinner being ready. When she saw me, she connected some dots and came over to monitor the situation with her kids and the dog because she is a responsible parent. Once normal conversation was possible over the squeals his grandkids were making, I calmly said, "When you take down my picture from your signs, then I will stop." The mom's head snaps up and she says, "Picture? What picture?" I point to the obnoxiously large "No trespassing" signs with my picture underneath, and her eyes widen and then squint. She asks why I am carrying my dog in the yard, and I explain that my dog's feet got hurt and I cut through the yard to get home when he couldn't walk anymore. She then rolls her eyes and looks at the guy and says, "Dad, you're such an a-hole." She then tells her brood, playtime's over, dinner is ready. Hilariously enough, as they go inside, 2 of the kids flip me and the fuss bucket off. The guy sort of deflates, mumbles a little bit and heads inside himself. I wonder if the pictures will still be up tomorrow. Update, totally forgot about this one, sorry all. The day after this post, the guy took all his signs down. Haven't had a chance to see or talk to him yet, he's been out every time I've been on walkies this week. And yeah, ripe stars, sometimes we can be lucky that some sort of crazy neighbor can maybe have a reasonable family member, or daughter in this case, that gives him a much needed reality check. And by the way, ripe stars, if you have watched until here, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you would like to support my channel. Thank you so much for your awesome support. And the last one is one of these much beloved grandpa stories, and it is titled "Bully My Grandpa? Well, enjoy being stuck in a poop pit." For backstory, this story is not mine, it is my grandpa's. Since he died before I was born, this has just been one of those family stories that I have heard since I was a little girl. My family has a lot of those, which I may tell if I find the willpower to do so. However, it may not be 100% what happened, but the main points where a bully got covered in poop are: my grandpa grew up in rural Iowa. I'm not gonna say where exactly, but Iowa is basically all cornfields anyway, so you probably got a mental image in your head already. He was always a stand-up guy, and despite this happening over 70 years ago at this point, you can still hear people speak very highly of the Boy Scout of a man that my grandpa was. I sincerely wish I knew him. At this point, my grandpa was in his junior year of high school, and despite being well loved in his community, he had his bully. Everyone has that one bully. His bully, though, just seemed to be a dick to everyone. Teachers, parents, kids, hell, there was even a small town cop fresh to the force who got bullied at one point. Which would probably go under entitled people if I make another post about when I ended up meeting this poophead. No one seemed to stand up to this stupid little high schooler that thought he knew everything. It got to the point where he would go out of his way to brag about it to people. This didn't set right with my grandpa, but he did not really know how to stand up to him without making things worse when it came to how he was being bullied. But one day, mistakes were made. My grandpa was getting a pop at a gas station with his friends, and this particular gas station had a restaurant attached, since it was a good spot for people to pass through on road trips or for a truck stop. And in the restaurant was the bully, laughing loudly with his little weaselly friends. My grandpa listened, just sipping his drink, and heard that they were going to pull a prank on an elderly woman that owned a farmhouse nearby. This woman's house was not in town, since her family had built that house long ago and worked the land around it. She was widowed, her children had moved away, and she hired people to help her maintain the place. Despite her age, I've been told that she was still a spitfire and insisted on doing a lot of the farming herself. The main issue with her health was heavy lifting. Anyway, back to the supposed prank. This woman didn't have indoor plumbing, which meant that she got water from a spigot near her house and that she had an outhouse instead of a normal bathroom that we had today. For those of you that are not entirely aware of how Iowa farm outhouses work, it is basically a big pit in the ground that someone digs. And then they stick a wooden shack on top of it. The shack then has a seat with a hole in it for a person to relieve themselves in. The bullies were going to wait until the dead of night so that they could tip the outhouse over. My grandpa was furious when he heard this. He had been hired before by her for summer work and knew that she was strict but a kind woman that didn't deserve to be treated like that. Because when your only outhouse is tipped over and you gotta go, there is no way you're gonna be able to lift it, and there is no way to safely crouch next to the hole without falling in. So my grandpa did the right thing and immediately went with his friends to tell the old lady what was being planned. They expected her to be furious when they told her the story, but instead she sipped her coffee and gave them a chilling smile. Let them, but we will have a surprise for them. And she let them in on a plan to make sure that things wouldn't go as far as the bullies had planned. That night, my grandpa and his friends, telling their parents that they were at one another's house to hang out, all gathered at the old woman's house, munching on some cookies and pumpkin bread. My grandpa got the recipe of her, and it is an amazing recipe that my family uses to this day, and they waited. At around 11 o'clock, they heard disgusted screams from the direction of the outhouse. You see, the way that the yard was set up was so that there was only one way to get into the yard and still have enough room to take a running start to tip the outhouse over. My grandpa and his friends did not tip the outhouse over, but they did move it over about 5 feet. And also lightly covered the now exposed hole in excess corn stalks from the harvest. The screams were from my grandpa's bullies being waist deep in human excrement. The bullies' friends were frozen in place by the gate they came in, and the old woman immediately turned on the lights and started yelling that if they didn't get off her property that minute, that she was going to call the police. My grandpa and his friends waited inside and heard the whole thing, laughing when they heard the pitiful cries from the poop pit and the running of feet from the co-conspirators. Wouldn't you know it, he couldn't get out himself, and since he wasn't getting off her property, she called the police. My grandpa and his friends watched from a window as the poop fiend was dragged out of his rancid prison and made to go to the police station to explain just what he was doing. He was not an adult, so he wasn't charged, but from what I was told, word got around school and his last 2 years of high school were absolute crap. No one knew it was Grandpa, and the old lady never told a soul. Thank you, old lady, may you rest in peace, you wonderful woman. And guys, if you have watched until here, I would love to get your opinion on this. What do you think about stories where bullies get essentially their comeuppance? Would you enjoy stories about getting revenge on bullies? Please let me know in the comments, because as usual, your feedback is very much appreciated. Thank you so much. And Ripe Stars, with this we have unfortunately reached the end of today's video. However, if you cannot get enough of my stories, then I would highly suggest you to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will show up at any moment in the left corner of the screen, which includes over 1000 Ripe stories. In addition, if you would like to share one of your own stories, then please head on over to r/Ripe Stories on Reddit, where you can post your own story and there is a good chance that I might read it in a video. In addition, please also check out my Patreon at patreon.com/RipeYouTube for more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos that you won't find on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, your daily support is very much appreciated, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.